I don't know how to start this video. I'm so accustomed to saying hello again and welcome to another episode of I want to talk about this album, but I can't do that today because I'm not going to talk about an album. I'm going to answer a burning question that I think everyone must have, and that is why I did not go to the big Judas Priest concert in Mexico City last night. For me, today is it's Monday, May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo, the biggest day of the year in Mexico. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. I don't know when this will be up. I do have a couple of episodes of I want to talk about this album in the can, one or two. And I'm doing another one, a big one with a guest on Thursday. So that's all coming up. But I don't know when this will be up. But Judas Priest played here last night in Mexico City, and I did not go. That's not a big deal. The reason that I went, the only reason that I'm doing this video, one, because I'm bored. My hikes have been off for about a month and won't return for another week or two. So I'm kind of looking for ways to spend my time. And I have mentioned in at least two previous videos, when I went to El Chopo a few weeks ago, I mentioned in that video that, hey, I would be going to Judas Priest and you could look forward to a Judas Priest bootleg merch video. And I mentioned that in the previous episode, which I did last week, which came up, which was published yesterday, which was Rising by Rainbow. I think I mentioned that too. And I think if this episode comes before one of the episodes that I have in the can, if they go out of order, I mentioned in one of those episodes that I'm going to Judas Priest this weekend, but I did not. And so just to explain that, I thought I would do this video, because the people that watch those videos might be thinking, hey, this guy said he was going to go see Judas Priest and he was going to do a bootleg merch video, and I haven't seen it. Where is it? Well, I'm going to explain that now. And this is going to be long, I know it. The short answer is that it was sold out. That is not enough to do a video, so I'm going to extend this. Yes, it was sold out, but there's a reason why I did not get tickets in advance. I have a bunch of notes here. I've written a lot of notes here, just reminders of things that I want to talk about. I'm not sure. I have 15 points here to get to. I'm not sure which order I'll do them in. I'll try to, as I do it, I'll try to kind of keep them in a linear fashion to make it make sense. So it was sold out. Now, the reason it was sold out, you might say, well, tickets went on sale 6 months ago. Why didn't you get tickets then? Excellent question. And there is a reason for that. And this goes back to COVID. Sorry to talk about COVID, but that's what this goes back to, at least in part. And you could say it goes back even farther than that. So during COVID, I and a lot of people had their plans changed. Whether they were big things, you couldn't go to the funeral of your loved one, you couldn't go to your kid's graduation, you couldn't get married, whatever. And for some people, our biggest inconveniences were that we couldn't go to concerts. And that was me. I didn't really have too much trouble during COVID, but one of them was concert cancellations. And there were 6, and I've written them down here. Six concerts that I had tickets to that were canceled. One was Pearl Jam, canceled. Ringo Starr, this is all due to COVID. There are some other cancellations that I will talk about later, nothing to do with COVID. This is just COVID in 2020, 2021. Pearl Jam, Ringo Starr, Bruce Dickinson, a spoken word thing, not his concert, not his musical concert. Exciter, and two local concerts with some bands that I love. One is Black Overdrive, and I should do a Black Overdrive episode for their album, great album called All Evil. Maybe I will do that with a guest in the future. That's not the guest that I was alluding to earlier. And an album release party for Vinam Savathi, and they were playing with Cardiel. That was going to be like late March. Those were all canceled. I never did get and I'll go into the second part of this. Even though they're canceled, and yeah, you get your money back, it's in some cases, depending on how you paid, it's a pain in the ass to get your money back. Some were easier than others, some were more difficult, some you had to wait a long time, some you had to email back and forth. I never did get my money back for the Black Overdrive concert that was canceled. It was going to be rescheduled. That was going to be in late March 2020, and the idea was that COVID would last for a couple of weeks, and then everything would be back to normal. So they said, hold on to your tickets. We're not going to give refunds. Just hold on to your ticket because the concert will be rescheduled. It was never rescheduled. I never got my money back. And for I can't remember for these shows if I got the service charge back or not, and that's going to come into play a little bit later with another cancellation that had nothing to do with COVID. But so since then, in general, I've been much more reluctant to, or is it reticent? I'm not sure which one is correct. One of those things. I've been hesitant, maybe that's a better word. I've been hesitant to do things in advance, not just concerts, but things like, I went to Thailand and Cambodia a few months ago in February this year, and I went to Vietnam 2 years ago in Cambodia. And normally I'm a very, very prepared person. I like to be prepared. I like to be ready. I like to do things in advance. I like to, to have everything organized. But for those trips, now if I had done things before, I would have booked hotels months in advance. But because of all the, COVID kind of started this, I got burned too many times by cancellations or changes or things like that. So for all those trips in Cambodia twice, Vietnam and Thailand, I just booked hotels the day before I went to them because you never know what's going to happen, not just because of COVID. And so, since COVID, there have been a lot of cancellations, some because of COVID, even a little bit later, and then some just because of lack of ticket sales, or I guess mostly lack of ticket sales, illnesses in the band. A lot of these bands I listen to, they're getting older. They have to cancel shows more often. I'll talk about that too. And so normally when tickets went on sale, I'm a loyal, faithful devotee of music, and when tickets went on sale, I would buy them. And I kind of stopped that after COVID because at some point you thought, well, when are these COVID cancellations going to end? Because Ringo Starr was canceled like in 2022, 2 years after COVID really started, and I was still getting burned in 2022. And so I kind of reached the point, with some exceptions. Now, if it was a big show, with I thought that might sell out or something. I did get Iron Maiden tickets in advance, although I bought those long time after they went on sale. And even recently, when I went to that baseball game, the Diablos Rojos baseball game in Mexico, I just bought my ticket that day. And also for me, it keeps my plans open. Maybe I want to change my plans, which I typically don't, but I liked having this freedom of not having these things in advance, although it kind of sucks too. And it burned me for Judas Priest. So I don't like buying tickets in advance anymore. So my attitude has kind of been, I'll buy them the day before, maybe the week before, maybe that day, and then if I don't go, well, it's no big deal because I didn't lose anything because I didn't buy a ticket. Or if the concert gets canceled, I have, good for me that I didn't buy the tickets. So getting back to Judas Priest, now there's another band involved here called Dirty Sound Magnet. I saw Dirty Sound Magnet in Mexico City in March last year, and they were excellent. I loved that. I had such a great time at that show. It was very, very good. And then they announced, I think it was in November last year, 2024, that they are coming back for their third tour of Mexico. 3 years in a row, I think they did, in 2025, 24, and 23. And they announced that tickets, there was an early bird sale, that if you bought your tickets, the first 50 tickets or something, if you bought them, they were like half price or something. So I thought, I definitely want to go to that show. And COVID is long past, so that's not a factor. So I bought tickets for the show at half price, which I think they were about 400 pesos, something like that. And I bought them. And Judas Priest, that was going to be for Saturday, May 3rd. Dirty Sound Magnet. Judas Priest was Sunday, May 4th. So this is great. Back-to-back concerts. I can go to Mexico City for the weekend. It's expensive spending 2 nights in a hotel because I would have to stay after Dirty Sound Magnet on Saturday and then after Judas Priest on Sunday because it would be too late to come home after Judas Priest on Sunday. So cool. That'll be a good weekend. I had my Dirty Sound Magnet ticket. Judas Priest, I thought I can wait. Now at that point, Judas Priest tickets, I looked and there were tons and tons available. I think Mexico is maybe not like other countries where tickets go on sale and people rush to buy them. Mexicans kind of do things slowly. So I thought, okay, I have my Dirty Sound Magnet ticket. I'll get Judas Priest later. And then about, I don't know when this was, maybe in March or early April, it was announced that Dirty Sound Magnet, and I'm sure this is not the band, this is either the promoter or the venue, probably the promoter, don't know why, they changed the date to Sunday, May 4th, which is the same day as Judas Priest. And I thought, fuck, now I can't go to Dirty Sound Magnet, and I already have my ticket. And this is part of the reason why I stopped buying tickets in advance, because of bullshit like this. Constant changes, cancellations, whatever. They changed the venue and the date. Clearly not the band. I understand that. It's the promoter and or the venue. So I had to start the refund process. And Judas Priest was a more of a priority. I figure, you never know, but I feel like with a lot of these bands, it's their last, you never know when it's going to be their last tour. Judas Priest has been around for 50 years. They're only going to come around every couple years. And I figure, it's 2025. Who knows if they're going to come back in 2 or 3 years. So Judas Priest, and I hadn't seen them since 2004. So Judas Priest became my priority. So I started the refund process for my Dirty Sound Magnet ticket, and what a pain in the ass it was. It's from a company called Passline Tickets. It wasn't Ticketmaster, it was Passline Tickets. Terrible. I sent them an email, and it said and it was Dirty Sound Magnet who announced it. As far as I know, it wasn't the promoter. Venue change and date change. We're going to be playing on Sunday, May 4th instead of Saturday, May 3rd. So refunds available, email here. So I emailed Passline Tickets and I said, I can't go to the new date. I need a refund. I ended up emailing them, I think about 12 times, back and forth. Just terrible service. They asked, okay, what is your name? I emailed them back with my name. And then they wanted more information. I thought, why don't you just ask me all the information you need and I'll give it to you in one email. And it was no joke. I think it was 12 or 13 emails back and forth. And they said they had to do it manually because typically if tickets were bought within 6 months or 4 months or 3 months, whatever it was, the refund would be automatic. But because I bought the tickets in November and this was in April or whenever it was, they said we have to do it manually. So there's one thing. There's another reason not to buy tickets in advance. And then so when I finally did get the refund, guess what? It wasn't complete. It was minus the charges also minus, they refunded me via PayPal. I guess that was how I paid. And PayPal takes their cut too. So I thought, this is bullshit. Somebody, PayPal and I guess Passline Tickets, they made money and I lost money for nothing. I bought the ticket. I did what I was supposed to do. I bought the ticket. If the promoter changes it or whoever changes it, give me back all my money. Give me back everything I make, everything I paid. Nobody should be making money from a cancellation or a postponement or a date change, and I shouldn't be losing money. And so I thought, that sucks. Now, I'm not seeing them and I'll only see Judas Priest. And then Judas Priest, I kept checking, lots of tickets available. And then I checked last week and there were no tickets available. Prices ranged from 646 Mexican pesos to 2,800, something like that, close to 3,000. And the cheap tickets, which I always buy, I don't really care. I just want to be there in the building. And so all the cheap tickets were gone. I thought, well, now I'm fucked. And I know that's my fault. And you could say, well, it's your fault. You didn't buy tickets. Yeah, I guess you're right. But I didn't think it was going to sell out. So all the cheap tickets were gone. But sometimes, tickets come up later. They release new tickets or something happens. I checked it all week, nothing. So that's why I didn't go to Judas Priest. So I went from going to from 2 concerts in a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, to seeing 0 concerts. Now, getting back to the other points that I've got here, and let me see what else I want to talk about this. There's more to talk about with Dirty Sound Magnet too. I'll do that now. So Dirty Sound Magnet, who is now supposed to play Sunday, May 4th, which for me was yesterday. So originally that show was scheduled for the HDX Circus Bar in Mexico City, And then they changed it to, sorry, no, first it was going to be for a place called La Piedad, which I've never been to before. And then when they changed the date, they also changed the venue to HDX Circus Bar, which is where I saw them last year. And then late Saturday night, I saw on social media that there was something called the Mexico Black Metal or Festival, Black Metal, Mexico Black Metal Festival that was taking place at this HDX Circus Bar where Dirty Sound Magnet was supposed to play the next day. And so I saw kind of late on Saturday night that this Mexico Black Metal Festival at HDX Circus Bar, I saw a lot of people posting about this. The police raided the place during the concert. The concert was like an all-day thing. And I think this happened at like 8 o'clock at night or something, like well after everybody had entered the building. Some bands had already played. Some bands had were still going to play. The place was full of fans. And it got raided. The police came and they said, "We're shutting this place down. Get the fuck out." In the middle of the festival. So I guess immediately they said, okay, the organizers, I guess, said, okay, well, we're gonna move the festival too. And this is amazing that they could do this with, it's not short notice, it's no notice. They moved it to a place in Mexico called the Fuck Off Room. And so even when they announced that, they said, "Fuck Off Room, here's the address." Then later, I guess at some point, people couldn't find the Fuck Off Room. So the promoters had to add, if you look at the address that we listed, if you look at that on Google Maps, it's not right. So they had to give extra instructions on how to get to the Fuck Off Room. That's unfortunately, this is all kind of part of the reason why I didn't go to Judas Priest and why I can't say I don't go to concerts anymore, but why I don't go to nearly as many concerts as I do. Garbage like this, and I don't know whose fault this was. I don't know if it was the HDX Circus Bar, if they actually did something wrong, if they weren't following, I don't know if they let in minors or they were letting people smoke and they're not supposed to smoke, or if they hadn't paid their tax. I don't know what it was. Or it could have been, I think what happens often in Mexico, there's a lot of bullshit in this country. The police or the government, they receive a complaint. There's maybe no basis for the complaint. So they send the police there. And because the police, I think, essentially in Mexico have very little training or any common sense, they act on that complaint and they go and they say, all right, we're shutting the place down with no basis. I don't know what happened. I don't know if HDX Circus Bar was at fault or if the police were, out of line, but whatever. So then the Dirty Sound Magnet show got moved back to the original location of La Piedad. So it was first in La Piedad on Saturday, May 3rd. It got changed to HDX Circus Bar on Sunday, May 4th. Then it got moved back to the original venue also on Sunday, May 4th. And sadly, that's I could tell many stories about garbage like this in Mexico, including one of my favorite Mexico City bands who is calling it quits very shortly, called The Rising Sun. I've seen them about 25 times. They were supposed to play a show in Mexico City, and I went there, and it was a place I'd never been before. And I got there, and I can't even remember the name of the place. It was on Tlalpan. If any of my Mexico City people are watching, it was somewhere on Tlalpan. And I got there, and I was with my wife at the time, and she was a big fan too. And we got there. There was nobody there. No sign, no fans, no sign of any bands, no sign of any concerts, nothing. There was one guy or one woman or something just working there, sitting at the box office or something. And we were like, what the hell is going on here? This concert is supposed to start in a couple of hours. What's going on? And so we asked, and they said, yeah, it's canceled. And yeah, I remember I looked on the social media, and there was no notice or anything. And then, so we kind of hung around and we said, and I think the person who said it was canceled wasn't sure. They were like, yeah, I think it was canceled. This is somebody who works at that venue. So we waited around for a bit, and then sometime later, the band, The Rising Sun, who are friends of mine, they kind of came in with all their gear, and I said, so what's happening? Are you guys playing or not? They said, yeah. Why? And I said, because they said it's canceled. They said, what are you talking about? They didn't even know. So they went in and they talked to somebody and they said, yeah, it is canceled. So there was no notice. This was canceled just like hours before with no notice. And I could tell many examples of that. So that was another thing with Dirty Sound Magnet, the date change and the venue change, then the venue changing again. Just garbage like that I'm very tired of. And I'll tell you another little nugget about that. Corrosive Conformity announced a show in Mexico City. They announced it about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, and it was supposed to be in September. And I thought, there's no way I can miss COC. I've seen them the last couple times they've been here. I saw them in like 1985. I will always see COC. And same thing. I thought, no, I don't want to buy tickets. And I'm glad I didn't, because guess what? 2 weeks later, around 2 weeks later, which I guess was two or 3 weeks ago, that show and that whole tour, I think they were playing a few shows through South America, was canceled, or not canceled, but postponed. And you never know if a postponement is going to turn into a cancellation. And that was because since they had announced this short South American or Latin American tour, they had got a much bigger tour with opening for Alice Cooper and Judas Priest. So obviously they took that, which was going to completely interfere with the Mexico show and the South America shows. So that show and tour were postponed, and they said we're going to work on a new date, which I've heard, many times, and the new dates never come. They did just announce that, I think just today, the new dates are going to be in, I think the Mexico City show is January 10th or 6th or something like that, sometime in January. And I don't know if I can go or not. I mean, I guess at this point I don't have any plans, but again, I don't want to, buy a ticket in advance for something. And remember, Metallica tickets went on sale almost 2 years in advance, and I didn't buy those. There's no way I'm going to commit to something 2 years in advance, especially a concert. And so that's another thing with Corrosive Conformity. And a couple more like that. Scorpions are supposed to play here on May, I think, was it today? It might even be today or tomorrow. 2 shows, one in Puebla, which is not too far from me, and one in a couple days later in Aguascalientes, which is much farther from me. But 2 shows in Mexico. Those are almost certainly to be canceled, because recently, as I said, a lot of these guys are getting old. So I guess it was last week, Scorpions were supposed to play in Ecuador, Argentina, and maybe Bogota, Colombia. 3 shows anyway. Each one of them was canceled because Klaus Meine has a respiratory infection or sinus infection, some kind of infection preventing him from singing. The guy's 76 or 77 years old. It's understandable when you're that age, things are going to happen. So they're just canceling these shows one by one, I guess, in hopes that, they don't want to cancel the whole tour in case he gets better. Although I think for something like this, it's not something that you get over very quickly. So they canceled the first show. We're sorry, but we can't make it. Show is canceled. Nothing about the next show 2 days later, 3 days later. And then 2 or 3 days later, sorry, but we have to cancel this one too. Klaus is still sick. No announcement of the next show. 2 or 3 days later, yeah, we regret to inform you again that we have to cancel this show, the 3rd show, because Klaus is still sick. And now, as I said, I think they're supposed to play in Mexico tonight. I haven't seen a cancellation. I can't imagine that show is going to happen. Whether it's today or tomorrow, I'm not sure. And the other one in Aguascalientes, not going to happen. So people paid, I guess, thousands of pesos, and they're going to have to get their money back. And I guess they're not going to get the service charges back. And I'm glad that wasn't me. And also last year, Scorpions canceled another show in Mexico. And from what I read, this is the 2nd or 3rd show they've canceled in Ecuador, like pretty recently in the last few years, just by bad luck, I guess. Same with Mexico. They were supposed to play in Mexico City at a big festival last year, and it got postponed. That was, God, it's hard to remember. All these guys have so many illnesses and operations and surgeries. Klaus had back surgery, and I think Mickey D then later last summer had some kind of surgery or some kind of illness. So Scorpions are really, really struggling. They're it seems like they're not, and it's understandable. They're old, but they're not a reliable band now, and that's what's happening to a lot of bands. So that's another reason. Now, there's another one that I was going to go to that was supposed to be this Wednesday, 2 days from now, May 7th, and that's Brant Bjork. I love Brant Bjork. I've seen him the last 3 times he's come to Mexico City. And it was announced on Friday, I think, a couple days ago. It's canceled, not postponed, canceled. And the thing that I really, really don't like, they're very insulting to. I hate the concert industry, man. The concert industry and the airline industry are despicable. They're not transparent. They don't really give reasons for anything. And also, I just remember Death Angel canceled a bunch of shows because Mark Osageda had a better gig, with Kerry King. Those open. It seems that there's no loyalty either by bands or promoters or venues or whoever. So Brant Bjork was canceled for this Wednesday. They don't say why. They just say concert is canceled. It's, I'm sure, due to a lack of ticket sales, low ticket sales, which I guess comes from people like me. And I hope I'm not the only one who is, kind of like, I'm going to go to that. I want to go to that, but I'll see what happens that day. And I understand if you buy tickets in advance, the promoter, especially for these, bands of that on that level, Brant Bjork and some of these other bands I'm going to talk about, not Judas Priest and Metallica and Madonna and U2, not those kind of bands, but the lower level bands. The promoters, I guess, need that money from advanced ticket sales so they can buy, I guess, plane tickets for the band and book hotels and everything and get everything ready. So Brant Bjork, I was probably going to go to that. And again, I'm glad I didn't buy tickets because I would have now had to start the refund process, which, can be a pain in the ass and you don't get all your money back. So I'm glad I didn't. And which brings me to, where can I go to next? Let's go with ticket sale phases in Mexico. And I guess this happens everywhere. And this is more with festivals and bands of this level. Brant Bjork and Graveyard. I'll talk about Graveyard too. When tickets first go on sale, as I said for Dirty Sound Magnet, they had the early bird tickets. The first 50 tickets or 80 tickets, whatever it was, were going to be 400 pesos. And after those are sold, the next phase from then until maybe a week before the show, tickets are 600, 800 pesos. And then the day of the show, they're 800, 900, 1,000, whatever. I really hate that. I understand they want to get some money so they can pay for all the things that they need, the promoter I'm talking about, so they can pay for the things they need to pay for. But I've been burned too many times, and more than I've been burned, I can't tell you how many times festivals, especially in Mexico, have been canceled because of low ticket sales, and maybe that's why. People don't have faith in the promoters. I think promoters of these kinds of shows in Mexico are largely incompetent. I don't know if they just don't think in advance or they don't think of everything, or maybe they're just unrealistic and they want to book these bands and make promises and the shows fall through. So that's another one. Now, and I'm kind of maybe going all over the place here. Let me get to another reason why I'm, again, just kind of really, really turned off concerts. There are a lot of reasons. Graveyard. I saw a Graveyard on March 8th, 2 months ago in Mexico City. And that's another one, speaking of tickets. I remember I bought that ticket. It used to be you could buy the ticket on Ticketmaster, TicketWeb, Passline, Super Boletos in Mexico, and you had to pay these service charges, right? And they can be very expensive, 22%. But if you bought the tickets at the box office, you could save the service charges, which can be pretty good savings. And so when Graveyard tickets went on sale, they again had the phases. At this stage, they're this price, then they go up here, then they go up here. And now I was already I bought my ticket in January. I was already in Mexico City. It was easy for me to get to that venue. I didn't make a special trip to Mexico City just to go buy a Graveyard ticket and then come home. But I did go. I went to the box office, went to buy my ticket, and I was going to be 150 pesos more than it was supposed to be. And she told me the price. I said, no, that's wrong. It's supposed to be this much. She said, no. And I went on my phone and I showed her On the it was the I can't remember if it was the promoter's page or who it was. It said tickets were gonna be 800, whatever it was, and she said, "Oh, okay. Well, just a minute. Let me go check." She went she went away for a minute, couple of minutes. She came back and she said, "No, they're not 800. They're 950." And I said, "Why?" And I can't remember if she said if it was because of the service charge or it was the next phase of ticket sales. And I argued. I said no, and I showed it. It was clear as day that it was supposed to be. Let's say it was supposed to be 800, but I was going to pay 950 or 1,000, something like that. And she just wouldn't have it. So I had to pay the extra, which was like 150 pesos more than and you might say, oh, 150 pesos, that's nothing. Yeah, maybe it is nothing. But when you do that for multiple concerts, and when you do that over 40 years of going to concerts, 41 years for me, it adds up to a lot. And even more than that, or just as much as that, it's just you stick to your word. If the price is this, that's the price. You can't go to a store and the price is this, and then you go to the cash and they say, no, it's more. You know, the price is the price. And I just don't like whether it's dishonesty or they forget, or it's just a lack of communication, or the people that work at the venue are not, aware of what's happening with the promoter. But anyway, so I went to Graveyard, and it was a fucking expensive ticket. That ticket was close to $50 US. But I thought, no, I really want to see Graveyard. I saw them in 2019, and they were excellent. I thought, no, I really want to see them, so I bought my ticket. And so I went there, and it's expensive for me to go to concerts. I've maybe talked about this before. Mexico City is out of state for me. So I have to travel to Mexico City, which, depending on on my perspective, you can say it's close or it's far. It's kind of both. Like, I wouldn't want to work there. There's no way I could work there. It's not that close. But when I have visitors coming to visit me, we can easily go to Mexico City for the day or a couple of days. But for me to go to Mexico City, I have to take half a day off work, which I don't. So that's half a day's pay that I lose. I know that's not the band or the promoter or the venue. That's my thing. But still, that's money that I lose. But it's okay. I don't mind doing that if it's something that's of value. And I think I'll talk about that more as I continue. And so I went to the concert. I went to El Chopo that day. And then I went to Graveyard. I got there a couple of hours early. I was first or second in line. I want to be there first in line. So Graveyard came on, I can't remember how much later, but significantly later than they were supposed to. The crowd started, like, in Mexico, they don't boo when they're unhappy, they whistle. And they started whistling, like saying, hey, come on, we've been standing around here for like an hour. Let's go. So Graveyard finally came out, and they played one song, maybe even not a full song. They had to stop. There was something wrong with the drums, or there were some technical difficulties. There were problems with the drums all night. And after each of like the first 5 or 6 songs, they had to stop, and the stagehands and whoever had to come out and fix the drums, fix the amps. There were all kinds of technical problems. And guess what? Graveyard ended after 58 minutes. They played a 58-minute headline set. This was not a festival. It was not, some kind of a free show or promotional show. This was a show that was expensive, about $50 US. They played 58 minutes. They cut the show short. They said, thank you, good night. They walked off the stage, and everybody knew they had more songs to play. And it was several minutes that everybody was standing around. And then finally the lights came on. Everybody was like, what the fuck? And I ran into quite a few of my friends there, and we all talked about it. Said, yeah, it's bullshit. And then next day on their social media, Graveyard said, yeah, sorry for last night. We had to cut the show short because of a miscommunication between the band and the promoter. And I think the promoter posted something similar too. So neither one of them wanted to take responsibility. But I think what happened was, because it was delayed so long, I remember, I'm very, very obsessed with time. I looked at my watch when it started. That's how I knew it was 58 minutes, and when it ended. And it ended at 11:59 or 11:58, something like that. I think that maybe there's a curfew of midnight, and if the band plays after midnight, somebody gets in shit. The promoter has to pay the venue extra. The band pays a fine. I don't know what it is. But I thought that was too much of a coincidence that they ended their set short at like 11:59, 11:58, 11:57, whatever it was. I thought, man, I paid a lot of money, and I had to stay in a hotel too. I spent $50 on a ticket, lost half a day's pay, was going to lose half a day's pay for missing the first part of my day the next day, money for a hotel. And I don't mind doing all that if I'm getting value for my money. But this is bullshit, paying $50 and losing all this money paying for a hotel to see, you know, a good 2-hour show and everything goes according to plan. And they open the doors like 40 minutes late, I think, too. Just completely disorganized. And that really bothers me, and it really, really turns me off. I will never see Graveyard again. I don't know whether it was their fault or the promoter, but that really, really turns me off Graveyard. And to be honest, it turns me off Dirty Sound Magnet, too. I know it's not their fault, the venue change and the date change. But, you know, I associate this with them. And I just think at this point, and maybe I would change my mind, I think if Dirty Sound Magnet comes back next year, I've given up on them. And maybe if they come back next year, I'll say, no, I'll go anyway. But at this point, I'm very off Dirty Sound Magnet, and I'm off Graveyard. And going back even further, let's go back to Exciter. I got to make sure I'm hitting all my points here. I saw, and that's a constant struggle in Mexico, shows starting late. It's fucking brutal. I can't tell you the horrible experiences I've had of shows starting late. I remember one at Foro Alicia, a venue, which that's where Corrosive Conformity is going to be playing whenever that happens. They were horrible, maybe one of the worst for starting late. I remember once I went to a Black Overdrive rehearsal. I mentioned Black Overdrive, how much I love them. And they were rehearsing, and they said, hey, come to our rehearsal, watch us rehearse. And so I went, and it was in the afternoon, and I was having a good time with them, hanging out with them, maybe drinking some beer, watching them, practice some new songs and play some new songs. That was really cool. And I was watching the time, and I said, okay, I gotta go. This concert at Fort Alicia, I can't remember who it was. Doors open at 7. I like to be in first and get there right up to the front. And so I got there right on time, and the doors were closed, and there was nobody there. And I think it was Venom Sabbati and maybe some other bands. Because I remember talking to my friends from Venom Sabbati, and they said, yeah, this is how they go. They ended up, it was supposed to be doors open at 7, first band is at 8. I think they opened the doors around 8 or something, and the first band went on at 9. I think, man, I could have stayed an extra hour with my friends and Black Overdrive and things like that. And then it ends late, and it causes all kinds of problems. And that's what happened with Exciter. When I saw Exciter at HDX Circus Bar, which is where Dirty Sound Magnet was supposed to play, that got shut down 2 nights ago. I don't know if it's ever going to reopen, and that happens a lot too. God, this is long. And I if you're staying with me, thank you. So I went to see Exciter, and there were supposed to originally be, I think, 2 opening bands. This is another thing. There's just too many opening bands at a lot of these shows. I guess these promoters or whoever's in charge of booking things, they think, no, the more the better. The more music there is, the more people are going to like it. I hate it. I don't want to sit through 3 opening bands. In many cases, they're just not very good. And it just extends the night. So there's supposed to be like 2 opening bands or 3 opening bands before Exciter. They ended up adding another and then another. And I think there were 5 opening bands. And in the original plan, it said first band plays at 8 o'clock, second band plays at 9 o'clock, Exciter plays at 10 o'clock to 11:30, something like that. Well, that all changed. So they said now the first band doors were going to open at 5. First band is at 5:30 or 6. Next band. That whole thing got off track right from the start because, if you open the doors late and the first band starts late, there's no way you're going to recover that time. So whatever it was, the doors opened maybe an hour later than they were supposed to, and the first band started 45 minutes later than they were supposed to, and then each band was later and later. And I remember I rarely post on social media. Like, I post my personal stuff, but I rarely comment or things like that. And when they kept announcing when they announced all these bands, I commented, I said to the promoter, I said, you know what, this is bullshit. This show's gonna end at 1 a.m. I'm not gonna have time to get the last subway, the last train back to the bus station or to the parking. I think I driven that day. My car was in the parking lot. And they said, no, we understand, amigo. Please put your faith in us. I think he says something like that. And please give us a chance. We promise everything is going to go on schedule, and you're going to get we'll make sure everybody gets the last subway and everything gets and like that. Well, guess what? Exciter ended, I think, 5 minutes before the subway closed, and it's like a 10 or 15 minute walk. So I missed the subway. I had to take I had to take a taxi, which was very, very far from HDX Circus Bar to Tascania, where I was parked. It was very far and very expensive. And it's just such a lack of respect, I think, for people that buy. And people have to work the next morning or go to school, whatever they have to do, or just whatever. Nobody wants to waste their time. And to me, it's very, very disrespectful for people that buy their tickets and have to stand around and wait. And I guess Mexicans just accept it. It's part of their culture, and I hate it. And I remember also at that HDX Circus Bar, fucking sucked. They sold beer. And that's all. And I'd been standing outside for, I don't know, a long time, 2 hours maybe, and because I always want to get up at the front. And then there were like 5 or, I don't know if it was 4 bands and then Exciter or 5 bands and then Exciter. They sold nothing but beer. Carta Blanca beer. No other kinds of beer, no water, no juice, no soda of any kind, no Gatorade, no sports drinks, no energy drinks, no coffee, no tea, no atole, no pulque, no tepache, nothing but Carta Blanca beer. That's it. Just terrible. So that's another one. What else have I got to say here? Also, sticking with late shows, Madonna. I saw Madonna last year in April. Now, first of all, that was another tour. The whole tour was postponed 6-8 months, something like that, because Madonna, can't remember what happened to her. She was really sick or something. And so first of all, the whole thing was postponed. I saw her in April. I think it was originally supposed to be in November the year before, October, something like that. Madonna started an hour and a half or 2 hours late. Again, it's disgraceful, man. People have to go to work. Then that was on a weekday. And that shouldn't even matter. People have to go to work. They have to go to school. Maybe they have babysitters, whatever. And for people to pay, in some cases, not me, to pay thousands of pesos to plan your day. Maybe you have to get off work early to get there on time. You maybe sacrifice something to get there on time, and then you just sit there in this giant arena waiting for an extra hour and a half and 2 hours. Incredibly rude and disrespectful. To me, that's unacceptable. I understand that sometimes some things are going to go wrong. It's still shitty. But from what I know about Madonna, and I don't know anything about her, apparently this is normal for her. That's like, I guess her diva behavior is to make people wait. I don't know if she's, that makes her look better, feel better to keep people waiting. She's like the queen. I don't know. What else? Now, more about shows starting late and ending early. There were 3, or I guess 2 of them still exist, venues. Sangriento, which I love. Rabioso, which I also love. They're owned by the same people. And one of my favorite venues ever, but they closed, I think, shortly after COVID, never to reopen, called Caradura. I saw some great shows there. Those shows fucking always ended early. You would always see some dickhead off the side of the stage going like this, or like this, telling a band, no, you're done, cut it off. And man, come on, I'm paying a lot of money and I want to have a good time, and I want to hang out with my friends after the show instead of having to run to catch the last train. But those venues were always terrible. They were always starting late and ending early. I love the venues, all 3 of them. I mean, the actual venues, but the way that they ran their shows was terrible. Another one, just how many festivals there have been in Mexico in the last, I don't know how many years, that are canceled for various reasons. 1 could be low ticket sales. 2, often the organizer, the promoter of the venue just didn't get their shit together. They didn't get permits. They didn't get they didn't secure the venue. They didn't get security. They didn't do something, and they get shut down. That's happened. Oh my God. There was a story in the Millennial newspaper, I think it was last year, about, I think it was Hell in Heaven. If you're Mexican, you know what festivals these are. Or also the horror festival, terror festival, whatever, that was last year, that also got canceled. Yeah, forget about festivals in Mexico. They're horrendously organized. Now that brings me to another festival. About a month ago, in early April, there was a festival in Mexico City called the Axe Festival. You know, the Axe brand, the body spray and deodorant, things like that. And they had a big festival in Mexico City at a place called Parque Bicentenario. It's an outdoor venue. I've been there once. I saw one concert there. And it was a 2-day festival. I can't remember who was playing. It was a bunch of bands I didn't care about, but I guess pretty big. It was. I remember Massive Attack was one. This guy called Tyler, the Creator. It's actually Tyler, the Creator. Ridiculous. Anyway, he was playing there. I think Caifanes. No, not Caifanes. Cafe Tacuba, I think, were playing there. I think Nancy Pelosi. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure Nancy Pelosi was a featured performer there. Now, whether you like any of those bands or not, and I don't like any of them, don't even know them, that doesn't matter. This is still falls under the same category of just horrible disorganization, and in this case, death in Mexico. So they had this big festival, and on the first, it was a 2-day festival. On the first day, I guess there was a crane or something, and at the top of the crane, they had attached like a sign or a lona in Mexico. It's called a lona, something like that, to it, and I guess the wind caught it, it started blowing, and it fell down, and it killed 2 people. And the concert continued that day. The concert continued. It was only canceled the next day. The second day it was canceled. So 2 people were killed, and that's just from pure, sorry to say, but that's very Mexican. Just a lack of any kind of safety precautions. I've been to concerts where there's like no security, where it's something just doesn't feel right, including when I saw Metallica last year at Photosol. When I talked about the first concert, I mentioned, go back and you can see in the video, I know nobody's going to do that. I mentioned that at Photosol, they had set up some temporary bleachers or grandstands at the back of the arena, the back of the stadium. Normally the stage is there, but because Metallica was playing in the round, they set up a grandstand. It was probably 4,000 or 5,000 seats for Metallica. And I was sitting in the second to last row from the top, and they're pretty high. They're like 50 or 60 rows high. So you're up fairly high. And during that horrible band, Five Finger Death Punch, not even Metallica, people were kind of, I'm doing this with my foot, kind of, or going like this. And I could feel it kind of shaking and swaying. And to the point where, and I mentioned this in the video, so this is not like a retro thing about safety at concerts. I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable. And I moved down. I moved down almost to the very bottom. I was like 3 rows up from the floor instead of being 59 rows up from the floor. And nothing happened. It was okay. But I really, really, really felt like this is going to be, the big story in the news the next day internationally. Thousands injured, hundreds killed as grandstand collapses at Metallica concert in Mexico City. And I'm not joking. I mean, at the time, I just didn't really like the way I felt. But looking back on it, I think, yeah, that's good. And I remember also when I saw Metallica there in 2009, and I was in the main grandstand, it was shaking. That I think was the first time I've ever actually been nervous for my safety at a concert. And Photosol at that time, oh my God, what a dump it was. They've improved it recently. But I remember there were big cracks in the pavement where you could see down, like, I don't know how many, 20, 30 meters down. I never felt comfortable at Photosol. It's better now. What else? I think I got just a few more things. Let me see. Graveyard, I did that. Now, some more cancellations, and this is not Mexico specific, but Gene Simmons recently canceled a bunch of shows from his tour because of poor ticket sales. And they never, as I said, they never come out and say that. They always just say, and it's such bullshit and so insulting, due to unforeseen circumstances is what they love to say, or, circumstances beyond our control. We apologize for any inconvenience. It's almost always low ticket sales. So Gene Simmons, and I think that's because his ticket prices are too high. I think almost every band's ticket prices are too high now. As I said, I would pay for all these concerts if I felt like I was getting value from it. But for me to pay $50 to see Graveyard, when I saw them in 2019, it was probably $20. And if everything goes well, and the people that work in the venues are often, and sorry to say, but this is Mexico, the people that work at the venues are often miserable people, not helpful at all, not friendly, just kind of angry people. Security is the same. Everybody that works these venues, they're just disorganized. They're not friendly. They're not helpful. They're just very angry, miserable people. I guess that's the word. And if people were friendly, and if things started on time, and if they didn't end early, and if it was organized and there were not technical problems, regular technical problems, I know that's going to happen sometimes, but there's too many in Mexico. It's clearly from lack of any kind of preparation. I would pay, but I think, you know what? I don't want to pay all this money and spend my money to go there, spend money in a hotel, lose money from not working, to go and end up being in a bad mood, as I was after a Graveyard or after many concerts, or being in a bad mood, maybe not after the concert, but waiting for it to start. Exciter, I was in a bad mood after that. I thought, I'm paying all this money to end up being in a bad mood. It's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to have a fucking awesome time at concerts. Now another thing, and I think I can circle back now to Judas Priest. About short concerts. So Judas Priest was supposed to play with Scorpions. I mentioned Scorpions canceled their concerts just last week in I think it was Ecuador, Argentina, and Colombia. Let's say those three. And I think at least two of those shows, Judas Priest was on the bill as well. I guess they were like big festivals or something. So Judas Priest, because Scorpions canceled, I guess, as a somewhat of a way to make it up to people who were there, Judas Priest played 3 extra songs. Now, when they started this tour that they're on now currently, I saw the set list. They're playing 18 songs, that's okay. But at these couple of shows in South America, they played 3 or 4 songs extra as compensation. Hey, Scorpions are not playing, so we'll play longer. They played, Diamonds and Rust, maybe Heading Out to the Highway or Delivering the Goods. I don't know, 3 or 4 songs. So then when they played in Mexico City last night, and I checked the set list today, they were back to playing 18 songs. So what I, kind of wonder is, and I'm not a set list complainer, but if you have 21 songs rehearsed, ready to go, you can play them. Why not play them? Why do you play 18 when you've played 21, the last 21 songs, the last couple of shows? Why not play 21 at every show? I'm not saying play 40 songs, but they've already they have these songs ready to go, and they play them. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit tired of and Metallica plays now like 15 songs when a few years ago they were playing 18, 19. You can say, well, they're getting older. Yeah, I know, that's true. But don't forget also Metallica and Pearl Jam and the Rolling Stones and all these bands, they're now taking like 3, 4. Guns N' Roses just started a tour last week. And Guns N' Roses plays a long time. I'll give them credit. But they're also taking 3, 4 days off between shows. They have massage therapists, they have physical therapists, doctors, nutritionists. They stay in the obviously the best hotels. Metallica, I think, doesn't even stay in hotels. They fly, or maybe they have, I think Metallica has like a base or something. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't make money either. But man, to charge so much money and play shorter and shorter sets, for me again, it's not worth. I'm not getting value out of that. I'll pay what I think is a fair price. And if you want to play a short show, okay. But when the prices are getting more expensive and the shows are getting shorter, and this is a Mexico problem, the venues are shitty, the promoters are shitty, I'm not willing to pay. So that's all. That's why I didn't go to Judas Priest, because I couldn't get a ticket for 646 pesos. And there were, at that point, when I looked last week, there were tickets available. I think the cheapest one that was available was 1,600, something like that. Like almost triple what I was going to pay. And I would have had to take half a day off work and would have had to stay overnight. And I thought, there's no way I'm paying that much for a concert, for any concert. I wouldn't pay that much for Metallica. I'm not going to pay that much for Judas Priest, who I'm a casual fan of. So there's my story. That's why I didn't go see Judas Priest, and that's why there is no Judas Priest bootleg merch video. All right, that was long. How long was that? Let me check. I have to get up and check. Are we at about 45 minutes, 50 minutes? Oh my God, 55 minutes almost. That is why I didn't go see Judas Priest. All right, I hope some of you got something out of this because I'm dying here. It's very hot. It's like 34 degrees today. I don't have air conditioning. I don't have my fan because I don't want the noise. But anyway, yeah, so I wasn't working today, at least not now. I wanted to take some time to talk about that. So that's all. Thank you if you watched a couple of episodes, as I said, of I want to talk about this album coming up. I think I do have one in the can. I am going to be doing an episode on Thursday this week. That's going to be March 8th with a very special guest who has never appeared on the show from a band. This will be the second episode I've done from this band, and I'll be talking to a member of the band who's going to join me for an episode, and we're going to go through their latest album, which I love, and we're going to go through it. And then I'm in talks with another guest from one of my favorite bands. I think that I'll be doing that with him next week. So some good guests for me anyway. Maybe you're not going to like them, but for me, I'm excited to do these episodes with my guests coming up. All right. So once again, if you made it through, thank you for watching. And even if you scrolled through, also thank you for watching. I hope I could explain myself properly. I'm just off concerts these days. It's very frustrating. And I didn't even get to the ticket buying process for big concerts when I saw Paul McCartney and Madonna, how hard it was to get those tickets and the bullshit you have to go through. Anyway, I think for the third or fourth time, thank you for watching. And I will see you soon, or you'll see me soon. Bye.